Tee Hee Johnson, or simply Tee Hee, is Dr. Kananga's brutal right-hand man who has a metal arm, replacing one which was bitten off by a crocodile named Albert. The secondary antagonist in the 1973 James Bond film Live and Let Die, he was loosely based on the character of the same name from Ian Fleming's 1953 novel, Live and Let Die, where he was portrayed as a minor character working for Mr. Big. Tee Hee was portrayed by American actor Julius Harris in the film. Tee Hee accompanies Kananga to New York. After leaving the embassy, they are followed by James Bond. Aware that Bond is following them, Kananga sets a trap at his Filet of Soul restaurant. Luring Bond in, they capture him by aid of a hidden trap door. Bond is greeted by 3 armed minions of Kananga, who is disguised as gang boss Mr. Big. After Bond shortly talks to Kananga's medium Solitaire, Tee Hee enters the room. He asks Solitaire whether Bond is armed, what Solitaire confirms. Knowing he has no choice, Bond opens his jacket, expecting Tee Hee to simply take the gun. However, Tee Hee grabs the gun with the metal arm he has instead of a right arm and crushes the gun barrel, making it impossible for Bond to use the weapon further. With a big smile, he returns the gun to Bond. As Bond says, "Funny how the least little thing amuses him." The spy is then brought before Mr. Big, but eventually escapes. Returning to San Monique with Kananga, Tee Hee and Solitaire are followed by Bond. Warned by Solitaire about Bond's arrival, Kananga sets a trap for Bond, with Tee Hee waiting for him at the end, ready to kill. However, Kananga's agent Rosie Carver is instead killed, shot by a gun hidden in the mouth of a voodoo scarecrow hidden on the island. Later, Solitaire defects to Bond's side after having sex with him and losing her powers in the process. She shows Bond Kananga's heroin fields, which Tee Hee tells Kananga. In New Orleans, Bond lands in a room in which he is greeted by Tee Hee, Mr. Big and Solitaire. Big tells him that by taking Solitaire with him Bond stole something extremely valuable from his good friend Kananga. Big then tells Bond that while he has plans with Bond, there is at first a question he needs to answer for Kananga. Bond replies that in that case Big had to ship him back to San Monique, as Bond wouldn't answer to lackeys. Though Big angrily asks Bond whether he touched Solitaire, Bond states that he will answer this question only to Kananga, intending to buy time. However, Big reveals himself as Kananga and tells Bond his plan: to give away the heroin for free to drive the competitors out of business and doubling the amount of addicts, then selling the rest of the heroin for a fortune via the newly founded monopoly. After having revealed his plan, he comes back to his initial question, whether Bond slept with Solitaire. When Bond refuses to answer out of gentlemanliness, Kananga intends to find out another way. He has Tee Hee take off Bond's watch, which Tee Hee then brings to his boss. Kananga then tells him to snip off Bond's finger on Solitaire's first wrong answer, proceeding to more vital organs with every subsequent wrong answer. He then reads a registration number off the back of Bond's watch and asks Solitaire whether he spoke the truth. Solitaire, only able to guess, tells Kananga that he spoke the truth, and Kananga tells Tee Hee to let Bond go, even giving him back his watch. However, as soon as he puts the watch back on, Bond is then knocked out by Tee Hee and Kananga orders him to bring Bond to the farm. Bond is brought to a crocodile farm, which Kananga also uses to create and refine his heroin. Tee Hee brings Bond to the outside, where he introduces Bond to the crocodiles. He lures the crocodiles closer by feeding them with raw meat, and also explaining to Bond the difference between crocodiles and alligators. He also shows Bond to Albert, the crocodile who bit off his arm, causing him to wear his metal prosthesis instead. Having arrived on an island in the middle of the crocodile-infested lake, Tee Hee leaves the rest of the meat there, as well as Bond, who is held there at gunpoint. As the wooden bridge is dragged back by his henchmen, Tee Hee tells Bond that there are two ways of disabling a crocodile: ramming a pencil in his eye or ripping out all his teeth with bare hands. Laughing gleefully, Tee Hee and the henchmen lock the gate, then return to the building, leaving Bond to be eaten by the crocodiles. However, Bond escapes from the island by using the crocodiles' backs as a makeshift bridge, jumping from back to back until reaching safety. To get revenge, Bond lures the crocodiles to the building, creating a line of meat for the animals to follow. He also sets fire to the entire building. Tee Hee and the scientists inside escape the inferno. Tee Hee seen Bond escapes and he sent Adam, Hector, Evans and other henchmen after Bond, which results in a boat pursuit through the swamps of Louisiana. Eventually, Bond defeats all his pursuers and escapes. During Bond's attack on San Monique, Tee Hee is not present. Eventually, Bond manages to kill Kananga and foil his evil plans. After order is restored, Bond travels with Solitaire by train, unaware that Tee Hee has smuggled himself onto the train as well, in a postal service sack. At night, while Solitaire is in bed, he cuts the power to Bond's cabin and approaches her. She believes him to be Bond, much to his delight. When the real Bond enters the room, Tee Hee switches the bed back into the wall, trapping Solitaire inside. Bond and Tee Hee then engage in a fight, which Bond wins by using pliers to cut two wires in Tee Hee's arm, which makes him unable to open it again. Tee Hee is now trapped, with his arm shut around the grip of the train's window. He is then presumably killed when Bond lifts him and throws him out of the window, ripping off the metal arm in the process.